Excellent.
Oh, excellent.
You can start.
Okay, so you will do the slides for me, right?
Yeah, just let me know where
Excellent.
to put them and it will be okay.
Cool. Can you maybe put the display a little bit higher so I can see a little bit of the audience?
Oh yeah, sure.
So it doesn't feel like I'm looking at myself all the time. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good. Great to have you here. It would be nice to be in Canada, but I actually didn't really realize, and it's really a long time that I've been to the States or North America in particular. So I would like to give you some minutes about Netlabs, in particular 20 years of Netlabs org. Last Wednesday, actually, we had the 20 years anniversary that I registered the domain. And as you can see on this slide, I started with one of the old logos. I saw that Luis actually has this in the sponsoring units as well, which is funny because it's an old logo, but I think it's the best logo we had in all these times. Can we go to slide 2?
Okay.
So as you can see, Netlabs was registered on September 9th, 1997. I was just a few days after 20 years old actually, so you can do the math. And initially the Netlabs page was simply a HTML page I created, I think, in one of these early OS2 HTML editors. And I did post to some OS2 news groups that I want to do open source for OS2. Unfortunately, I spent quite some time trying to find the old original news post. I couldn't find the very first one. I only found some other ones, as you will see later. Can we go to page 3?
Okay.
So this is pretty much how Netlabs looked like when we started in 1997. I didn't have it online anymore, but I found the HTML source somewhere so I could resurrect this view back then. What's very interesting for me is that how simple we started. We really just had this idea that it would be great to work together on some open source stuff. And I simply put together this web page with my very simple English back then, and somehow I hit the nerve. People actually started to get in contact with me and started to say that they want to help. This is the entry page. You can see that we described a bit how we can upload stuff. So we did have a FTP server quite early. And then it was mainly about gathering ideas. So I encouraged people to send me ideas of what they want to do, or encourage developers to tell me if they need support to provide some software for OS2. We started to gather some categories. We had games, internet utilities, general tools, multimedia stuff, and so on. But in the beginning, we really started with absolutely nothing. I, for myself, I did program back then, but I was not a really good programmer. And within the past 20 years, I basically never coded anything for OS2. It was always me motivating smarter people than me to do the work. Let's go to page 4.
There it is.
Once we went public, and this is probably around December 1997, so only a few months after we started the whole thing, I apparently got quite a lot of feedback because this was the news page, and I'm very happy about the feedback I got here. They were the first programmers to contact me. There were the first concrete ideas coming in. You can see a little bit more below that we had the idea to port GIMP to OS2. GIMP was back then a pretty famous application on Linux because it was the first real open source, well, Photoshop equivalent is maybe a big word, but something in that direction at least. We had some other stuff which is probably less fancy, Katuga, XMRM, I don't even remember what that was. A lot of that stuff never happened, but you saw how naive and simple actually we started. Page 5. So one of the first project was indeed GIMP, and as you will see on the next screenshot, we managed to compile that on OS2, although it was based on X3. So you had to have X3 installed on OS2, which was made by this German guy. I think his name was Holger Weid, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
He was the one which did the initial EMX libc porting layer, and that enabled quite a lot of stuff which wouldn't have been possible without back then. We didn't have a Knut's libc. This was stuff that came much later. Page 6, please.
Page 6.
This was the typical way of communication back then. You remember that 97 the web was still quite young. Tim Berners-Lee just started it a few years before, and it started maybe to become bigger 93, 94 or something. So I remember that most of us were hanging around in the news groups, in particular in the OS2 news groups for sure, and that's the way how we spread the news for OS2 as well. They were extremely active back then. I still think that these were probably the most entertaining times for me. I never really got into the web-based news groups later, the forums and that stuff. For me, the original news groups were the best place to communicate. They were very active, they were very fun. You had some advocacy groups if you wanted to have a fight with someone, so everyone could do what they felt like. Pretty much everything I communicated back then was probably done in the news groups. I'm not even sure, does anyone remember when we started the voice newsletters? It's probably quite a few years later.
They are not sure here.
I think it was years after that, so originally probably there was no voice. By the way, is Roderick still there?
Yes.
Good. You will be in some pictures. Good. Page 7, please.
Page 7.
So this was one of the first things we actually really released. You could use GIMP, but you had to have X3 installed. This was not something too many people did, I think, but at least it was a start. Page 8.
Yes.
Around this time, something else happened. Mozilla or Netscape Communications back then basically said that they will stop the commercial development of their web browser and that they will release the whole source code into something which later became Mozilla. I remember that this was really, really big for us. This was just a few months after we started with Netlabs, and it was totally clear that we wanted to have whatever they provide on OS2. There was actually a crazy guy from Finland, a very young guy, contacting me. His name is Taneli Leppä, and he told me that I will start porting this Netscape stuff to OS2. He started doing that alone, and as far as I remember, IBM never released the OS2 patches. They did that from Netscape. IBM actually provided the ported version, but they never released source code back. So if I'm not totally mistaken, and let me know when I am, none of the OS2 patches were ever made available by IBM, so we basically had to start from scratch. This also shows a bit that we were pretty naive. I mean, it's something between optimism and just believing that good things happen when you pursue them. This port actually never happened within Netlabs. Taneli disappeared at one point, and it's actually very funny. Yesterday I googled his name because it was always quite particular, and you wouldn't believe it, I found him, I contacted him, he confirmed it's him, and he is working for Google now, so it's very funny to see how these things go. And he still didn't remember for sure. He was also the author of PM123, one of the probably first MP3 players we had for PM. He did that together with a guy from Canada. I think his name is Samuel Odet or something like that. So anyway, you start to see that we were, or at least many of us were, a bunch of young people with all the optimism you have when you are 20-something. And we did whatever we thought is necessary to get ahead with OS2. In the end, I think Mozilla was ported by this IBM guy, what was his name? Anyone remember?
Mike Copley?
Yeah, exactly, Mike Copley. He was one of the main contributors to that thing. So it was basically finished outside of Netlabs, but nevertheless it gave Netlabs a visibility and additional people which started to contribute. Page 9.
Okay.
So for sure, we were young, we really didn't like Microsoft, we really hated them, and I had some fun as well. Please go to page 10. So this was, I think it was probably late 99, 2000. I still remember the apartment, which was around that time. So for me, I thought what you can do, I can do as well, and that was basically what we aimed at with Netlabs. Page 11. I think the thing which made Netlabs big and successful in the end were the real-world meetups. And the first one I personally participated was Warpstock 2000 in Stuttgart, if I remember correctly. Roderick, have you been there as well?
No, I wasn't there yet.
Ah, okay. So you came in a bit later. This was the first time.
Yet.
Sorry?
He wasn't born yet.
Well, thank you for the estimation of my age.
Not that young, huh?
I'm getting gray hair. Look close.
Yeah, the 20 years paid tribute to everyone by now, I think so. Anyway, for me, this was really the moment where the fun really started. I mean, we met in the real world. A lot of the guys showing up there didn't see each other for the first 3 years we worked together. So for the first time we did have a face to a person. If you remember, there was no Facebook, nothing like that. People didn't publish pictures everywhere. We didn't have digicams back then, or when we had digicams they were extremely bad, as you will see later in a picture we found. But we did really have a great time together, and we started to get the impression that we can do stuff even without IBM. At this time, in my opinion, it started to become obvious that IBM didn't care too much anymore. We were a bit unsure where it's going. So Warpstock was really key for motivating us to go further. Unfortunately, I did only one single trip to the States. This was Warpstock 2000 in Philadelphia. Was anyone there of the audience? Oh yeah, I see some hands. So this was, I think, still not my only, but my first trip to the States back then. It was really great fun. I remember I went there with Ulrich Möller. You might remember him from X Workplace. He had the fantastic idea, he was only a few years older than me, and he had the fantastic idea to rent a car in Manhattan and then drive to Philadelphia from Manhattan. That is okay. But because we didn't have any clue, we didn't have any smartphones back then, we agreed that we will meet in front of Central Station. And that was not really a smart idea. I remember that I waited there for a bit more than an hour and Ulrich simply didn't show up. I had absolutely zero idea where he was. We couldn't contact each other. And I was about to give up, and then suddenly he showed up completely exhausted and told me that he took one wrong turn and it took him 45 minutes to get back to the right track. So anyway, after that we had a really cool road trip to Philadelphia and a very nice Warpstock 2000. I think it was called Love, Peace and OS2 back then in Philadelphia. Page 12, please. I talked about how young we were, and this is actually a very funny picture. This is pretty much, not completely, but pretty much the complete Odin team from back in the days. I remember that we wanted to have a picture because Odin was already a thing back then, but it was the really first time we met each other. The backside on the left, I'm not really sure anymore who this was. I think it was one of the Open Office, or back then Star Office guys. Roderick, you don't remember him, do you?
No.
Okay, so I'm not sure about this guy on the left. Then the next one, Roderick, you probably know him.
Sander van Leeuwen, is that him?
No, not yet. Achim Hasenweiler.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm looking where Sander is, but
Yeah, he is. So I will quickly continue. From left, the second one is Achim Hasenweiler, then Knut Osmundsen, still actually doing stuff from time to time. Then you have Sander van Leuven in the black, I think Nike pullover or whatever it is. And then next to him, Bart van Leuven. And on the right side, I think I forgot his name. He became really sick, unfortunately, after that. So we didn't hear from him for many years after he was healthy. Fortunately, many years later, I think he had cancer. In the lower row, you see Markus Mankowski, better known as USB guy. He was the one which started the initial work on the USB stack, and then in the middle, I think this is pretty much clear for everyone. Who is it?
Daniela.
Yeah, exactly, Daniela Engert. And then last but not least, me. So the very funny thing about this picture is that we had this team, but Achim basically forbid everyone to make this public. Achim was always very business driven. He always wanted to make money off that stuff. He basically asked me back then to hire, if it's okay for me if he will hire some of the guys of this group, and I said, well, do whatever I want. Netlabs was for me a fun thing, not a business thing. So he hired Knut and Sander a bit later, and they founded Innotech and started to work on basically OS2 consulting. And this picture should not have been released for him because he said, people see how young we are and no one will take us serious.
Wow.
So actually, this picture didn't see the light until many, many years later, and it's actually very funny. I asked yesterday on the IRC channel if anyone has the picture because I couldn't find it, and Martin actually had it in some album. Where did you find that, Martin?
I have no idea. With the years,
Okay.
I just collect stuff and put it there.
So thanks for that. This is really a nice piece of history. We always told the story that we were not allowed to publish this. Okay, page 13. This was quite interesting. I had a look at the Warpstock homepage, which is absolutely fantastic. You can still find the whole thing. That's the benefit of the good old HTML only days. You can still put the site online and it looks okay. I did a session about Netlabs, obviously, and you can see that already back then Achim had 2 sessions about OS2 and embedded system and one about Odin project. He really understood the business part early, and he really pursued that, obviously successful, as we all know, and he understood that there is quite some business in OS2. And it was very interesting to hear the session from Luis yesterday where he explained that you don't shut down a plant driven by OS2 unless or just to replace the operating system. You stop the operating system probably when you shut down the plant, but not before. And up to this point, you can make consulting on top of it. Oh, and down there you see Warpzilla and Mike Copley, by the way. Exactly. Good. Page 14, please.
There it is.
Was this your first one, Roderick, or did you join 2001 as well?
Sorry?
What's the first one?
Oh, the guy on the left with the orange hair, that's John Gao.
Exactly. What did he do again? I couldn't remember.
He made the data transport agent, the generic WinOS2 driver.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't remember that. I think he was in England, or is in England.
He's in Scotland.
Ah, Scotland, okay. Was this your first Warpstock, Roderick?
No, possibly, yes.
Okay. So we will see some more pictures. Page 15, please. And this was also 2002. On the left side you see Knut again. On the right side you see Sander van Leuven again. And in the middle, was that Vitaly? It's one of the Russians.
Yeah, that was probably Vitaly, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that was also very interesting. I mean, we did have the young crowd in Europe. We had a little bit an older crowd in the States, more senior from business perspective. And then at one point the Russians started to show up, and up to this date I don't really understand why OS2 was so popular over there. But I remember that suddenly at Warpstock people came, or we actually started to get requests if we could provide invitations for them so they could come to Warpstock as well, which I naively did. I wrote many guarantees that I take over the cost. Fortunately, no one ever did something stupid and refused to go back. And at one point we also started to hire people. You might remember that I had Lavest working for us for a while. I had some other programmers doing some really great work. And it was very interesting to see that you had extremely skilled people which had respectable jobs before. And then with the fall of the wall, they basically were drawn into the normal market, and they started to do, for their skill sets, really stupid work. And they were very happy to have some more challenging work in the OS2 domain. Page 16, please. You can see we were a bit younger. On the right side, this is Bart van Leuven again, and me. Page 17. As I said, we were younger. Page 18.
You're getting bold.
Yeah, only black, fortunately, so I can still fight it off a bit. So, page 18. I think the peak times was probably 98 till mid-2000s. We had a lot of meetups, we had a really strong participation from the community, we had some extremely skilled contributors, you already saw some of them, and we had a lot of successful projects. For sure, not only, we also had projects which basically ended up at Netlabs and no one took care of them. We didn't give a guarantee. Our goal was to make the best out of it, and the ones which had a really good community actually survived and exist up to this day sometimes. Page 19. Some of you might remember that we even started to do an opera port. This was actually done by Yuri Dario, Italian guy mainly, based on Odin. He started to compile the source code from Windows on OS2, and up to certain points this actually did work. I don't think we really made a big business with that, or I think we even get it away for free. Yeah?
I think it was sold via Mensis partially, or the Opera website even.
That can be. I forgot the details. At least it was quite a fast browser back then, and it did exist for a while. But as far as I know, we didn't really maintain that much longer. What you can see here is that we also started to have a more professional website. I started to use my own content management system. I think this was really, looking back, the most active time for Netlabs as a project. Page 20, please. We also started to do winter camps in the Swiss Alps. This was actually something Bart van Leuven and I started to do after Warpstock. I remember that at Warpstock we chatted and he said, I like snowboarding, and I said, yeah, I go snowboarding every year. So the Dutch guy with no mountains came to Switzerland, and basically daytime we were snowboarding, and in the evening we were sitting around and doing OS2 stuff. Page 21. 1 year later we started to make this a thing, so we started to invite other guys. Here you again see Sander van Leuven and Markus Monkowski. Page 22. On the left side you see Bart a little bit later, I think that was 2004, and on the right side Knut. You really see we did do snowboarding, and on page 23 you can see that we did hack in the evening. That was pretty much what we did for 1 week. Really big fun, a lot of stuff was going on in these times. Every time when we came back from winter camp we had some new ideas and started some new stuff. It was very, very nice. We did that for many years. 24. On the right side, Chris Wolkemuth, Candy Bars, he took over, right? No, Roderick.
What Chris did, what he started with, you mean?
Yeah, Candy Bars, did he take it over, or?
No.
I don't remember his early work. I know that he did the CWMM classes, which were really
yeah, exactly. That was his most famous work, the WPS multimedia classes. Page 25.
25.
Unfortunately, at this time, things slowly started to change. I think around this time, IBM started to more or less publicly say that they stopped with OS2. As far as I remember, the only one we had still doing work was Scott Garfinkel. We started to have talks to various people to see if we could get access at the source code. This is something we never really publicly talked about because it was extremely frustrating. In short, it became very clear that IBM doesn't give a F about it. They simply didn't have interest. I started to get in contact with Mike Kogan. I'm not sure if some of you ever met him. He was one of the OS2 2.0 architects, and he wrote the book, The Design of OS2, which is up to this date one of the most interesting books about operating system design, in my opinion. I had a few years back quite interesting talks with him. We had, among others, the idea to get the source code from OS2 for PowerPC. Our naive assumption was that IBM doesn't really care about that source, and based on this Mach kernel abstraction, we could do something with it. Basically, we got excuse after excuse. We heard stories that parts of the source code are lost. I think they said the presentation manager source code, the PM source code cannot be rebuilt because they simply don't find one part of the source. They said the WPS source doesn't exist anymore, at least not anywhere where they would know where to look up, and so on and so on. Regarding the PowerPC source code, they told us that Microsoft still has the full rights on it and they cannot release that. But when I talked to people like Mike Kogan, he said this is complete nonsense and this is just to not have to talk to you. They could release that. IBM is not that stupid. Anyway, what became very, very clear is that we will not be able to get any of the source codes we wanted, and we will have to live with some limitations as long as we're going to build on top of this thing. This actually made us, in the end, more creative. Page 26, please. Around 2004, we started to have dreams like what can we do, where can we go with this whole thing. The community was still quite big, although we did start to lose some of the really core contributors. I think Sander was one of the guys which left at one point because he simply didn't see a future anymore. Some others went away as well, so it didn't get easier, but we still had a core of people doing stuff. Then I started to think a lot about what other options do we have. I had to have a look at Linux, at BSD kernels back then. I started to have a look at other open source projects. I mean, you remember when we started OS2 Netlabs, open source was not really a big thing yet. It took another 8-10 years till this became very, very common everywhere. So the last point you see here from a slide from 2004, I already said back then our community does not grow. Page 27. We started to analyze some stuff. We did had some things which brought us forward, like Knut's libc project. We did have stuff which didn't work. We didn't have B threads back then. We had issues with selects. We even had Alex API stuff. This was a Linux API layer back then. We started to think more about porting Linux and Unix utilities to OS2. And I think this is quite interesting because when I see what Paul Smedley and Yuri Dario and the others do nowadays, I think a lot of stuff became much, much easier because we started to have the foundation of these porting tools. I also saw the presentation yesterday by David, very, very interesting about the work he does with BSD drivers, so it's really great to see that this is going on and further. Page 28. So around 2004, another guy showed up on the left one here. This is Robert Henschel. Robert had the idea that we should do a meetup just with developers to have more time to reflect things, to have ideas which not necessarily make it in the real world, but at least we can discuss that. The problem was that whenever we discussed stuff at Warpstock, it was in the news afterwards, and people were expecting that we do something And sometimes you just want to reflect some ideas and see is there any point in that or not. Page 29. So based on that, we started to create the developer workshop. The first one was actually done 2005 in Dresden, in Germany. You can see some other famous people in here. The guy in the middle with the green shirt is Rudi. He is the one which did the Hopage TV card driver for OS2, and I think he was one of the first one which provided some MPEG-2 codec as well on OS2, so he was very active in that domain. Page 30. I started to do in 2005 a really big outlook on where I wanted to have Netlabs go. Back then I had around 100 registered people in the Netlabs org user database. As a side note, it's probably around 400 now, which is quite interesting actually. So this became quite bigger after the peak times of Netlabs for some reason. Back then it was mainly developers. We did have some users like Jan Mannerheide and others which were always very, very actively helping in administrative stuff. We mainly chatted on IRC, so the main channel for Netlabs was IRC back then, up to this point actually for some parts, and the meetups basically kept us together. Page 31, please. But we started to see that we do run into issues. Was Scott Garfinkel still there in 2005? Anyone remembers?
I think he left a year later. I think it was 2006.
A year later, okay.
He did that final posting in the news groups that he called those.
Yeah, so anyway, we started to see that we have some serious limitations, and again, I was very impressed by David's presentation yesterday where he showed how they are able to circumvent some of that stuff, but I think some things are very, very hard to fix. I mean, some PM bugs will probably stay forever. Page 2. So we started to think, why are we still using OS2? And for me, up to this day, I would say, the multitasking is fantastic. My Mac still doesn't manage to play an audio file without stutter on heavy load, which is somehow sad. But the one thing which really convinced me was the workplace shell. And we started to think of how can we do something like the workplace shell, maybe on other kernels. We really started to have great ideas, and page 33, please. The outcome of this thing was something which we had called codename Voyager. Basically, we wanted to rewrite the workplace shell on another toolkit because it became also very obvious that PM will be a dead end. We will not get the source code, we cannot do anything on it, and we will have to re-implement some. Actually, we did start that. There are still repositories. I wrote a blog post about the 20 years where I linked to it. Chris Wolgemuth, the guy which did the multimedia extensions, really started to re-implement some like environment from scratch, and he managed to do some very impressive prototypes as well. We started to have a look at X3. We were not really happy with X3. We started to think about using frame buffers and stuff. In the end, nothing of this happened, but what is for me very interesting is that the Linux community about 3 years later started to go into a similar direction, and some of the things we criticized on Linux, for example this X3 dependency, started to go away. So nowadays you can actually run a Linux desktop without a full X3, you have new environments on top of it. But this also shows a bit that we were simply crazy in terms of it took the Linux community a really long time to get this stuff on a level where they could use it. And we somehow back then, naively looking back, assumed that a quite small community can do that on its own. 34. This was, I think, in Dresden. You see Roderick, you see me on the left side with the face cut off is Knut again. You see Rudi, second one to the right, the multimedia guy. Page 35. The one presenting is Jacques van Leuven, and on the left side you see Jan Wanderheide. He is still the one doing all the Netlabs newsletters, by the way. So he is a very good example of two very active users. They never really did a lot in programming, but they were always extremely active users and helped us doing stuff. Page 36. So 1 year later we had the developer workshop in Biel. This is the place where I live here in Switzerland. I really enjoyed that developer workshop. We had fantastic ideas. We were super optimistic. As I said, from nowadays perspective, quite naive. The community was already obviously shrinking. There were a few long-time contributors which didn't show up anymore at this developer workshop. And we started to come up with a pretty cool idea. I actually found this PDF somewhere in the presentations from back then. So basically we wanted to redo something like OS2 for PowerPC more or less from scratch. And as much as I still like this idea, I think it was simply too much for the moment we started. 37. This is some more impressions from the workshop back then. There were actually quite some new young people joining back then as well, which didn't use OS2, but which liked the idea of having a modern desktop on top of a Unix kernel. Page 38. We also invested into some stuff which didn't really turn out to be super useful. For example, we had someone working on a FireWire driver. I'm actually not sure if anyone ever used this thing. We spent quite some money on this, but FireWire was pretty much dead. Page 39. This is, I think, Warpstock 2008. There it really became clear that we are not getting more, but the few people which were still active still gathered on a regular basis. Daniel Engert again, with Roderick, and Roderick, what was the name of the guy behind you?
He's sitting right behind us.
Yeah.
Maybe the back is done.
Oh, really?
He's here.
Fantastic, we didn't see each other for a really long time now.
The Globetrotter still comes to both locations. Warpstock.
Really?
Yeah.
This is really nice to see you. See, that's why I really like the community. That was really the part which kept that thing together. Page 40. So, some of the famous contributors stopped basically using OS2 and quit. I stopped using OS2 a while ago as well. New ones did join, and what really made me happy yesterday was to see that there is still this group of people which do the crazy things no one would consider possible. I remember spending a lot of time with Willibald Meyer thinking about GenMac, spending time on that, and I'm really happy to see that David took some of the ideas, probably some of the source code, and started to do new stuff on top of that and make sure that you can really use this extremely fast kernel still up to this day on modern hardware. And yeah.
No, everything okay.
Okay, good. Not sure if someone wanted to say something. For me, it was absolutely clear that even when I stopped using OS2, I didn't want to stop Netlabs. I really liked the whole thing, what we started. I still replaced the hardware from time to time. I'm still in contact with Louis and all the others to make sure that everything works as it should. And if you go to page 41, I'm very happy to see that ArcOS is happening. I think one of the problems we had that at one point Ecom Station started to stall. There was some uncertainty there with Menzies and things didn't really move ahead as they should have been, and I'm very, very happy that ArcOS is taking that over and pushing the whole thing further again. So I talk about 20 years Netlabs. I want to finish with some thoughts about what should I do or what should we do with Netlabs. When we look back at what we did is basically we created a GitHub, or back then more like a SourceForge, before there was any GitHub or SourceForge. And nowadays you cannot compete with these platforms. GitHub is an absolutely fantastic platform. I use it every day for my own business now. for the stuff we are doing, it doesn't make sense to rebuild a GitHub for OS2. I will continue to run the Subversion repositories for everyone who wants to use them. I'm not mad at anyone starting to use GitHub for new stuff. But I think what really made the difference with Netlabs is that we were not just a platform, we were really a community. And somehow we managed to have this community feeling up to this point, up to 20 years later. And honestly, if someone would have told me back then, I would have said not going to happen. And what I still miss in all these platforms like GitHub is the community feeling. I don't think that people like me, which are not really strong programmers, but creative people and happy to help, they cannot contribute too much stuff on a developer platform like GitHub. And I still have some ideas in my head, which I hopefully once will be able to implement for creating a platform which you can use together with platforms like GitHub to manage the community better, to manage the people better, which actually use the tools, the applications, the software. And if I ever do that, I will surely try it on Netlabs. I hope that I can completely replace the very old web pages by now. Martin already urged me several times to redirect the project websites to the track, which I will do because the track is at least more or less up to date. But what I want to say here, if you have any ideas of what you are missing, especially when we compare it to 20 years ago, the way how we interact, please let me know. I did mention the news groups because the news groups gave me a way better community feeling for talking to people. And since the demise of news groups, I never had this feeling again. So I hope that we can one day build something like news groups, but in a way which is better than the web-based forums we have right now. Nothing against those two words, Martin, but I never really got attached to this forum way of interacting. It's for me not what I'm looking for. Anyway, I will continue to run the service as long as I can, so don't worry about that, and I hope we can have some more celebration later. Page 42, please. So cheers for the past 20 years and for the ones following. Thank you very much.
Let me raise the tablet so you can see the full audience because
excellent.
You're so just seeing.
Indeed, there are some, I know, really great.
And the other side, slowly.
But
Cool.
you asked when Voice started the newsletter, and we went back in the archives. It was May 1977. 1997, excuse me.
97.
19.
So it was pretty much the same time then.
Yes.
That's very interesting. I think probably the motivations were the same. I mean, we already did see that things were not as we wanted it to be with IBM, and I think the community started to organize themselves back then. So this is probably one of the reasons for that. Cool. Any more questions, stories, feedback?
Well, if you want to see some of us in real life, we'll be moving for Warpstoch Europe to Berlin in May next year. Last week.
Oh, really?
Yes, so...
That would be a good excuse to come to Berlin again. I will put that into my agenda.
Announcements will probably follow in 2 weeks' time. Stay tuned to
Okay.
warpstock.eu.
Right. Cool. Then thanks again. Enjoy the rest of Warpstock and hopefully hear you in a few years.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Adrian.
Okay.